really touched me and moved me and got me up out of bed, and I had quite the emotional just kind of reaction. So I did what a lot of us would do, and I immediately went to my cards.
Burn and brew with Coven, true and glorious shall be thine.
Hey friends, it's Jasmine, and I hope that you all are doing well. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I am a practicing witch, and I talk about that here on the internet. So if all things witchery is kind of your thing, maybe stick around, check out my channel, or peep the links down below in the description to follow me elsewhere. If you are a returning subscriber, it's really good to see you back. Thank you so much for coming back. Your support really means the world to me. So it is beginning of October and it is still so hot. It's upsetting. This hair is going up. In today's video, we are going to be doing week 4 of the hashtag Tradtober. But really quick, check out these nails. Don't mind the eyelash glue on my finger, okay? Look, aren't these fun? Shout out to all the horror fans out there. I thought these were so cool. We are going to be beginning week 4 with a video about the restless dead, those who haunt the land and haunt it well. And if you see me kind of looking over here to the side, it's because I do have my laptop pulled up with the document, as well as just a few notes that I want to make sure I touch on because y'all know how I ramble. So starting first, I kind of want to just define what I mean when I say the restless dead, and everyone's personal mileage may vary here, so definitely take this with a grain of salt. We've already kind of touched on the beloved dead and the mighty dead. Now let's talk about the restless dead. Very simple terms, the restless dead are spirits of the dead who haunt the land, whose fracture of their soul still remains here on earth. And in one of my previous videos, I talked about how, as a traditional witch, I both believe in hauntings as well as reincarnation, which I think to some people might seem like very contradictory philosophical worldviews, because how can we encounter the spirit of a soul while also believing that that soul then gets reincarnated? And if you're curious to hear my thoughts about that, I suggest that you check out week 1 or week 2 of Tradtober. I think that's when I kind of talked about that. But as kind of like a short entry, in American traditional folkloric witchcraft, we very much work within a 3-soul paradigm. And part of that includes the black soul, or the aspect of us that is most ourselves, that is connected with our fetch spirit and that returns to the land to be reincarnated in a very biological way, or to stay here on the land as a restless dead or a shade to haunt the land and haunt it well. And a spirit may choose to do this because of their own personal will, to serve as a guide for their loved ones, their ancestors that are coming after them, or other witches possibly. But I also think that it would be foolish to not also include ideas of trauma, splitting fractures of a soul, and keeping aspects of a soul maybe stuck within a pattern or a place. I also think that time in general is a really wibbly wobbly kind of concept, not for like a Doctor Who reference, but I do believe also that there can be sort of rhythms of patterns that have happened before that continue to kind of ripple throughout the timeline that maybe aren't necessarily an actual spirit, but more like residual energy of an event that continues to take place for whatever reason. This is a controversial view of mine, but I do also include non-human spirits amongst the restless dead. I think that we have a lot of folklore that supports this belief, especially this time of year, that there are forces that are hungry and that seek to devour the living, haunt the living, feed off of the fear from the living. And while some of those spirits might be horrible humans, because just because someone was terrible in life does not make them a saint in death, I think that oftentimes The dead are very much like the living. They're just dead. So if they were kind of an asshole in life, I don't think that just because they're dead, they're all of a sudden sanctified and have found the error of their ways. We also very much believe in these sort of vampiric-esque parasitical entities. And I think that we have a lot of folk magic around this time of year that encourages us to ward ourselves, our homes, our fields, our methods of transportation from these restless dead that are hungering for life force, that are hungering to be fed. I much reject the notion that all spirits are inherently good and well-meaning, and I think that that's really, at best, looking at everything through rose-colored glasses and kind of out of touch with reality, or at worst, just blatant toxic positivity and gaslighting of one's own spiritual self. But the first prompt is to share any paranormal stories or supernatural encounters. Now, if you do go look on my channel, and this kind of will touch on my thoughts on ghost hunting as well, which is the next prompt. But if you go look on my channel, I do have a couple of playlists where I have been a part of paranormal investigations. One at the Indiana Sanatorium, which was wild. And we also did one at the Whispers Estates, which was also wild. And both of these experiences, I feel like, shaped me in very different ways. The Whispers Estates was extremely intense, but it felt a lot more, I don't want to say solo in the sense that it was like just me, because there was a whole team of people, but there was more of a particular entity that I was encountering there, versus at the sanatorium, it was very loud and it did not feel solo. It felt like there were hundreds of spirits and entities and just completely chaotic energy that was honestly really hard to navigate. I've made full playlists about that whole experience for both of those. I will try to remember to link those down below, but if you go look under my playlists here on my channel, you'll probably be able to find it. One of the things that I did at both of those was a Three Kings ritual, which is a sort of trance possessory-like ritual. I've also made some trance possession content here on my channel as well. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can check that out. But the essence of a Three Kings ritual is to bind the oracle and to subdue and disorient the oracle so that a spirit may possess the oracle. And it involves candles, a bucket of water, rope, a chair, the darkness, and just completely unlit space, and 3 mirrors that are angled like 1 and then 2, 3, so that they all kind of reflect. And it works kind of like with fire scrying, with candle magic, with mirror scrying. And you can find some more information about the Three Kings ritual if you just kind of look into it. I'm not really gonna like make this whole video about that because we would be here all day. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Matter of fact, I think I just need to like make a separate Three Kings kind of ritual video. But if you go look at those playlists, you'll see what I'm talking about. I also recently, just this season, had a very interesting encounter, not so much with the restless dead, but actually with the beloved dead with my mother. I was scrolling TikTok before bed and a particular video came up that was the song that we played at my mother's celebration of life, but by a different artist. It was a cover. And it really touched me and moved me and got me up out of bed. And I had quite the emotional just kind of reaction. So I did what a lot of us would do, and I immediately went to my cards. I lit some incense as kind of an offering, and I went to my cards. And I feel like I had a real encounter with the spirit of my mother this Samhain, which has been beautiful and totally unexpected because I was planning to talk to her closer to Samhain, and it kind of happened like in the early middle of October. But I mean, my mother's always welcome at my house. My thoughts on ghost hunting is I find that a lot of the language used is, I feel like, very problematic and very disrespectful. Obviously, I have no issue with working with the dead, with venerating the dead, with exploring the paranormal or supernatural. But I think the idea of ghost hunting, like we're going to spots where tragedy has happened to inherently try to trigger spirits of the dead or that residue, that residual shade of like the timeline being weird, to manifest as a way for it to be a party trick for us or as a form of entertainment is really gross. I think a lot of people that engage in this, for the most part, tend to be well-meaning, but I would really caution witches to just kind of look at it from a different perspective and consider, like with the Indiana State Sanatorium, they had patient paperwork scattered all over the sanatorium, and it was condemned and shut down not that long ago. There are people living today who could have had relatives that were there. That's fucked up, and that has to be some kind of like health code violation or HIPAA or something. For people to be able to go into a place like that and just access that sort of confidential material feels weird, and to turn it into almost like a tourist attraction for profit when there were people at that sanatorium that were pretty much left for dead and abused in ways that I can't even talk about fully here on YouTube, that were mistreated, that some of them found the conditions to be so horrible that they actually fled into the local woods and ended up freezing to death because they would rather try to live in the woods than return back to the sanatorium due to the conditions. And people think that that's a form of entertainment to go and prod and poke at anything that might be there is weird to me. So some of like the dude bro ghost hunting shows, one, just feel like a leftover remnant of spiritualism to me. And I'm not trying to speak ill of that, but there's some gross parts of that. Like, let's just be real. There are some really weird, predatory tactics used in that. And it's also for TV. Like, I think that we can't forget that reality TV, as someone who's been behind the scenes and seen some of reality TV behind the scenes, I'm telling you now, almost nothing about reality TV is real. So I think ghost hunting in general, like by that label, is already starting off on the wrong foot. I also kind of have weird feelings about like paranormal activity and supernatural, because as a witch, I feel like paranormal is kind of not in alignment with the way that I see the world. Paranormal meaning like outside of the bounds of what is considered normal. I think that encountering spirits is very normal. Same with like supernatural, like it's more than what is natural or it's outside of nature. I think that it is very natural. So I think that my experience like as a witch, working with the dead, working with otherworldly spirits, practicing magic, like I don't think it's necessary. It's normal to me. So calling it paranormal or supernatural feels like very inauthentic. And it feels more like I'm visiting the craft as opposed to like living it. And maybe for other people that are not familiar with some of this aspect of the occult, to them, I could see it being very outside of what their normal is. But I'm also not super familiar with what normal is to begin with. Like, look at me, okay? Question 3 is share your favorite cemetery to visit and why. So this one is kind of difficult because I do have like probably 2 cemeteries that are really after my heart. One of them being a ancestral cemetery that relatives of mine are connected with, and it's on old farmland that I kind of mentioned earlier in this series. So here I'm going to talk about Crown Hill Cemetery. Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, Indiana, is one of the most significant and historical burial grounds in the United States, combining landscape beauty, architectural monuments, and many notable interments. Crown Hill was incorporated as a nonprofit, non-denominational cemetery on September 25th, 1863, in response to Green Lawn Cemetery's overcrowding during the Civil War. The first burial, Lucy Ann Seton, took place on June 2nd, 1864, just one day after the formal dedication. The site was chosen partially because its highest hill, then known as Strawberry Hill, offered panoramic views and was renamed the Crown, hence the name Crown Hill. The cemetery covers approximately 555 acres, making it one of the largest non-governmental cemeteries in the United States. It contains more than 225,000 graves. The ground feature about 25 miles of roadways weaving through the gently rolling terrain, wooded areas, and formal mausoleums. The cemetery also serves as a kind of arboretum and wildlife refuge. It hosts deer, raccoons, foxes, red-tailed hawks, and more than 130 species of trees. Among its architectural treasures is the Gothic chapel, completed in 1875, designed by Diedrich A. Bohlen. The Gothic gate, built in 1885, serves as a striking main entrance. The cemetery is listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1973. Within its bounds is the Crown Hill National Cemetery, a 1.4-acre plot set aside in 1866 to reinter Union soldiers from Greenlawn, becoming Indiana's first national cemetery. A Confederate plot was later established in 1931 to receive the remains of 1,616 unknown Confederate soldiers, many of whom died at Camp Morton in Indianapolis. Another notable memorial is the Indiana AIDS Memorial, the first permanent cemetery-based AIDS memorial in the United States, honoring those who died between 1982 and 1999. Crown Hill is the final resting place for many prominent Hoosiers and Americans, including President Benjamin Harrison, poet James Whitcomb Riley, industrialist Colonial Eli Lilly, the gangster John Dillinger, and numerous governors, vice presidents, authors, artists, and other influential figures around the Midwest. If you are anywhere near Indianapolis, I highly recommend that you check out Crown Hill Cemetery. It's listed as one of like the top 10 things to see and do while you are here. It's that cool. It's considered to be an art park, and families go on picnics there, people ride bikes there, and it's beautiful just to walk around. I plan on taking a trip to Crown Hill Cemetery here soon. I'll probably actually go on Halloween Day, as that's kind of like a tradition of mine, but I also try to go at different points throughout the year and pay respects to specific individuals that I work with that are buried there. It's a lovely cemetery, and hands down, by far, it's probably my favorite, if not my second favorite. It's kind of a tie, like I said, with that family plot, just because that has such a direct connection to me. But I also very much see Crown Hill as like the heart of our city, because it is so massive and just is so interconnected with the history of Indianapolis. Looking forward to checking in with you all next week for the end of #Tradtober for the reflections. I hope that you all have enjoyed this series. I think that's going to be it for this video. So until next time, friends, I hope that you all are well, drink your water. I hope you have a beautiful and wonderful season of the dead and Samhain if you celebrate. And until next time, friends, blessed be, and I will see you in hell. Bye.
Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Down, down, down the road, down the witch's road. Circle sewn with fate, unlock thy hidden